Well, hello again. This is Tiger Dietrich with another update on how the board game jam is going on this Friday evening. Probably my last update from my outside office. There's no air conditioning in here, and the sun is coming in right through this window, so it's making it kind of warm in here. So this will be my last update today from in here. So I'm going to move into the main house where we have nice, cool air conditioning. Where my dog is wondering probably where I'm at. Maybe even probably take a little break and probably take her to the dog park or something like that. So here's the update. Here's where we are at so far. So the big thing I've been kind of toying around with is kind of working from the end of the game to kind of like the front of the game. I think the one thing I'm trying to reconcile is how do you simulate a baseball game as quickly as possible so that you can do a lot of them. So I'm kind of playing with a lot of already kind of existing kind of mechanics that are in games, using those as a way to kind of I don't know, like kind of move the game forward or kind of add new stipulations. The other thing I'm kind of toying around with is how do you figure out who this person is that's rigging the games? How are you going to determine that factor as the game progresses? And that's kind of what it made it kind of tough because I'm thinking about like baseball in general, where it's very isolated in a lot of cases. You know, like if you make a bad throw, it's hard to tell if that's because you made a bad throw or if you're intentionally making a bad throw. If you're striking out, are you doing it intentionally? Are you looking at pitches that you shouldn't have been looking at? You know, those are types of things that can make it hard to kind of suss out who is actually throwing a game. So this game has to have a mechanic that can allow you to kind of almost like understand who is doing that in a way. So I'm trying to figure that out as well. I think the big thing I have found, and this is kind of just a more recent revelation, is how do we give powers to the players to figure out what these things are, or how do you kind of a catch up mechanic as well. So what I've come up with is essentially it comes from Secret Hitler, where you kind of progress on this track, and as one side progresses, you get more powers or some things happen. So as the series progresses in this game, game one, there's nothing happening. Like everyone just plays the game like they're supposed to, and then if you lose the game, that's bad. But it's a 9 game series, so there's a lot of time left. If you win it, that's great, you know, for the team who doesn't have to, who's not trying to throw games. But if you lose it, it can be detrimental, and then that's another part of what I read about like the Black Sox scandal was once people kind of got word that the White Sox might be throwing games, there was a lot of pressure put on the players themselves, and they started playing poorly because of that pressure. So there's that aspect of it too. So I want to put pressure on the people who are kind of in the scandal to either try to hide it better or to maybe lean into it a little bit more too. So after the first game, if the team loses, then what happens is there's like a drawing card mechanic that's also going in here, but there's going to be more power given to the players so that they can understand what types of moves their teammates are making in the gameplay process. After the first game, it's going to be, if it's a loss, the catcher gets a lot of power. And then after a second loss, then the infielders get more power. And then I believe, and the only people that don't have any power are like the outfielders, because they just run out there. So like a lot of stuff, like they have to throw the ball into the infield. So the infielders are going to have a lot of power. Infielders can look at what each other are doing because they're usually doing a lot of talking. They are kind of close teammates when it comes to like double plays and stuff. So they'll know what each other are doing. Catchers always know what the pitchers are doing. Catchers are calling the pitches, so they kind of know what's going on. So you kind of can. It's almost like a shake off in a way too. So that's how you can start learning. What people are putting into this pile of plays to maybe that might be hurting your team, hurting your team's chances to win as well. So hopefully that will make it so it's not as easy to figure it out, because then that gets into the debate of like, well, no, it's just a bad throw. No, it was just when you're drawing cards, that's all I had, so I had to go that route. So it kind of takes that element into it as well. Now, as the teams win, I'm also putting in a mechanic that says it's harder to win games as you move forward. Now, just like in a regular series, as you start winning, it can get tougher because the other team's going to play harder. Things just happen. So in the game itself, like when you're simulating a game, what's going to happen is this is where the dice drafting kind of comes into play. You're as if you're the player, you're going to roll dice. And depending on what you roll and depending on what your character card says, you will be able to use that die to purchase either an offensive play card, a defensive play card, or a pitching card. Now, pitching cards are only for the pitchers and the catchers. They're the only ones that get to see those cards or be able to add those to the pile. Now, under one of those cards, it's going to be either a good outcome or a bad outcome. And you're purchasing those, and then at the end of your essentially like the game, you're going to put those all into a pile, shuffle them up, and see if you have completed. There's going to be situations like criteria to win the game, and if you as a team come up with enough of those to make that outcome happen, you win the game, and then you can move along that track. If you don't, then you will lose the game. So that's where kind of knowing what each other's playing kind of comes into play. Another kind of secret Hitler type of mechanic that I'm kind of using. But it's also using a mechanic from a game called Dead of Winter. And I actually went and grabbed this game, Dead of Winter, because it has character cards. And depending on, each one, you have to roll a different number to be able to like do exploring or make an action move to kill a zombie. So I want to use, I'm kind of looking at that as well as a way to try to get plays into the deck, and then when you shuffle them up, just like in Dead of Winter, you don't know who necessarily played what. You just know like this is an outcome that happened. So I'm looking at like criteria for winning games as kind of like what they use. It's like you need to have so much fuel, you need to have so much food, you need to have so much shelter. Kind of doing the same thing with kind of like, hey, you can't have too many errors, you can't have too many strikeouts, you have to have this many runs, you have to have a double play. Stuff like that can set those criteria so that that's how you win your game in there. So that's kind of that's kind of been like what I've kind of come up with in the last 4 hours. Making a game is hard. So that's where I'm at right now. So I'm kind of playing around with how to progress the game forward, how to, where some of the argument part comes in is like how you kind of argue with people about, whether or not they're the ones throwing games. I'm still trying to figure out like how many people are throwing a game, depending on how many players are in the game. I feel like this is like a 5 to 10 player game. Kind of like a Secret Hitler is 5 to 10. A lot of like the social deduction games seem to be like a 5 to 10 player game. So how many people do you have actually in on it? With the White Sox, almost the whole team was in on it. So that's where we want to kind of figure out what that all means as well. So still figuring that out. But I think for the most part, what I have done is kind of figured out what the track is. Now I got to figure out kind of how to use the dice and how that kind of incorporates into the game as well. So that is the next step. Like I said, this is probably my last update from inside my office shed thing because, like I said, there's no air conditioning in here. The sun is coming right through this window. And this makes like a really good office for the day, but not for early evening. So that's the update. I still don't know what this game is called yet, but that is where I'm at right now. I have my notebook where I'm kind of writing a whole bunch of stuff out. I'm listening to ska music, which for some people might think that's probably not helping your process at all. But that's where I'm at. So thank you if you were watching this, keeping updated. Hopefully I'll have another update to you by later tonight or early morning tomorrow, depending on what I'm working on. I think the next thing I need to do, I need to go take my dog to the dog park and kind of clear my mind and start thinking about other things within the game as well. So that's it. Thanks a lot, everybody. We'll talk to you later.